Hello everybody, and welcome to our last tape lecture, which we're going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to talk about evaluating a pharmacy business, and we're going to talk about what to expect when you are looking to get funding from a banker. This lecture, please watch in its entirety, plus please read the readings that I've posted, because all of these are going to help you with our exercises we're going to be doing on our live lecture meeting on Friday, December 7th. And remember, we'll be meeting Friday, December 7th from 3 to 5 p.m. in Bear 321 on the third floor on campus. So let us begin. One of the things we'll be doing next week, we're going to be breaking up in groups. I'm going to be giving you pharmacy scenarios to purchase a pharmacy, and you guys will be working together to look at this pharmacy's financials, the description of the pharmacy, and to make a determination of the value of the pharmacy and what potential things you think you may want to do to be able to make this a successful business. The other thing that I reiterated in my email the other day is that when I posted the inventory lecture a couple weeks ago, I posted the financial exercise, which is based on all the readings and the chapters that you did earlier in the semester. You do not have to have this exercise done. This exercise we will go through in class, but please just look over it when we meet. And I'll talk about that at the very end of this lecture. So, when we're looking at key things to consider in evaluating a pharmacy business, we always need to think about lots of different things. And the first one, if I'm going to purchase an existing business, I'm going to think about location, location, location. Because is this business that it currently exists, is this a business that is in a good location that people will want to go to? People will have ample parking for it to be successful? And also, is there things around it that are going to attract people? Retail locations aren't necessarily, always good pharmacy locations, but if you are a pharmacy next to a grocery store, you are a pharmacy next to a local prescriber, an urgent care center, that makes a very good location. You also have to think about maybe the location the pharmacy currently is in might be not the best location, so we may need to think about moving the pharmacy to another location. But you have to take into factors there. Is the location that I move it to close enough that I'm still going to keep the current business? The other thing you have to think about in location is, like I said, parking. Easy in and out access. Is it right at a red light? Is it a very difficult road to pull in and out of? That might not make a good pharmacy location. Other things you have to think about in evaluating a pharmacy business is your own personal issues. Am I at an age that I'm mature enough and ready to take on a big venture like this? Because this is something that is exciting. This is something that, is going to be rewarding for yourself and for your family. But at the same time, there is risk. There is risk in every entrepreneur. And we've talked about that numerous times this semester. And so you need to find out, is this the right time to purchase the pharmacy? Some other important factors you need to consider in evaluating a pharmacy is, what is the competition around the area? Is there able to, as I said before, good access to the business, good parking? And just having competition around the area doesn't mean that's actually a bad thing. Having competition can also be a good thing. One, you may evaluate your competition to see what do they offer that they don't, that I could do better at. Well, what aren't they offering that we could offer that I believe customers and patients want? The other thing is, you want to be able to analyze the area's market size. What is my potential for growth? What are the area demographics? What type of growth? Is it a high young population? Is it an aging population? Is it a pediatric population, which will focus? Is it a population that has a high incidence of type 2 diabetes. All these demographics will allow you to evaluate what type of business you could have and the potential for growth for that business. Another area to help with potential growth is what are the number of local prescribers in the area? What is their practice specialties? What are the businesses besides pharmacy that are around that will attract people to this area? And maybe what are some special market segments? So maybe nearby there's a home health agency, there's a personal care home that maybe that's something I could get into and service. It's very important to take into all these factors. I have a good friend who had numerous pharmacy businesses, and they found a pharmacy that had gone out of business 6 months prior, and they thought, you know what, this would be a good place. But a couple of things they didn't factor into was the area that they put the pharmacy in was a dying downtown. Not a lot of thriving businesses outside of the bank and some small shops. So people weren't really going downtown anymore. The other thing is there were a local prescriber, but this prescriber was on the end getting ready to retire and was not taking new patients. In fact, he was losing patients. And so unfortunately, after a little bit over a year, that pharmacy had to determine that they had to close their doors. So there's lots of different important factors to help you to be successful and to prevent stories, as I just mentioned. In today's world, you have lots of resources to be able to do good marketing and demographic analysis. If this was 30 years ago, aka prior to the internet, you would have to either go to your local municipality building, your libraries to do this research. But from your computer, your laptop, your tablet, to your phone, you should be able to access those. Online yellow pages, government census sites, and the one I have on the top bullet point here, epodunk.com, is a great resource which can break down the area that you're looking at, the demographics, the average income of the area, which would help determine what type of services you may want to sell, especially if we're looking at some other cash type of services. And then the other thing is you can look at, the health status of the area. So doing a good market competitive analysis is very important for you, for a business plan, and especially when you're selling to a bank. The next thing we need to think about is the biggest issue, the paramount issue to both the buyer and the seller. What is the true value of the business, and how can that be documented to the satisfaction of all parties when the purchasing of this business occurs? So, what is the market value versus the market price we need to take into consideration? And for this slide and the next couple of slides, think about not just a business, but think about something that all of you may do, and that is purchase a house. So purchasing a house or purchasing a business has one similarity. There is always the market value, and then there's the market price. So let's look at both. The market value is the value that is ascertained by using one or more of the formulas that are out there that can be applied and determine what is the true value of that business. For example, in the housing market, there are people that, are, professionally trained to do, the true evaluation value of a house. There's the evaluation of the house based on how the county or the township determines their taxes, but there's the value of the house based upon what, you potentially should be able to sell it for. And that is based upon several things. What is the condition of the other houses in the area? What is the selling value of similar transactions in the area? And what is the upkeep of the house in that area? Determines market value. The same thing will go on with a business. Sometimes it's very hard because there's not a pharmacy every other one like housing, but what is current pharmacies selling for in that nature? What is current pharmacies in that prescription volume should be doing in terms of revenue? And so there's numerous ways we can look and compare that. But then there's the market price. And the market price is what someone is willing to pay for a pharmacy, or in my analogy, a house, regardless of the stated or documented value. And in a world where there's a high demand for something, that value can be higher. In the world where there's a low demand, that negotiation value may be lower. And the one thing you have to take in consideration is when you are looking to go to a lending institution like a bank, the bank is never going to go above what the market value is. They will never meet, a lot of times, the market price unless it's on the lower side. If it's on the higher side, unless it matches that market value, you're not going to be able to get that type of funding traditionally just from a bank. If you're wanting to do that, that may have to come from your own investments and money saved. So, the age-old question, how to evaluate a pharmacy business. I provided for you in the folder for this week numerous, not numerous, there's about 2 or 3 articles, and several of those articles talk about the different formulas to evaluate a pharmacy business. You're going to be doing this application when we meet next Friday in your groups. And so let's just talk about a couple of them briefly. One way is take multiples of cash flow, income, or profitability measurement plus the value of the inventory. Another is to look at the percentage of annual sales plus the inventory. And this is only a good formula if you have comparable stores, because annual sales, you would want to look at what is the volume that they're doing in terms of prescriptions, and that would help determine, is that truly the right value. The chains, when pharmacies are looking just to close their doors and sell to the chains look at a fixed dollar figure on the number of prescriptions, and they'll provide a value to that. And that value can go to anywhere between $8 to $15. And in today's world, I've seen some of my colleagues in this field say that sometimes it can go even higher to up to $25. Plus, they would buy the inventory. This value, though, is usually based on a couple things. One, how close is the business they're purchasing? Because most of the time, they're not going to purchase that they're not going to operate that building and lease where that pharmacy exists. They're going to move those files to their nearest store. So the closer the store, because the closer the store, the more potential for them to retain those patients and customers, the higher the value of the prescription. The further away, the less value. The only time the value may be high if they're further away, if they have real estate in that area and they're looking to maybe open up their own or build their own building in that area. This is something to take into consideration, maybe not now for you, but if you do start your own pharmacy business and then in the future want to buy another pharmacy business, you may use this evaluation. Another one is looking at a multiple of the owner's total compensation, looking at what the owner currently draws as a salary and their managerial salary plus their inventory. Obviously, we're always trying to compare to other types of other businesses like this, but in determining these values, you are going to seek experts in this field. There are accountants that work with pharmacies every day that can help bring the value to this. There are business evaluators that work for banks that have done transactions of acquiring pharmacies. And I'll talk about in a couple other slides where you can find those people. But that is very important. So there's no simple formula or rule of thumb to evaluate a business. The financial statements of a privately held company often do not always represent the entire picture accurately, and this can be both a positive or negative. Some examples of this: the current pharmacy owner may take advantage of, some of the business breaks you get. Their car may be part of the business. And so maybe you don't have a car part of the business. They may acquire different, business expenses, such as, they may have, a membership to certain clubs, or they may have, tickets or things like that. They also may employ more employees that you think you would employ. They may have different family members that do different jobs. And so those would be things that you would crawl back to see the true profitability of the business. The other thing is, you'll want to, look at, their multiple, their sales, both their weekly, their monthly, and their annually, and you have to look at the varying profitability. You'll also want to look at, too, what different type of contracts they're in. Are they, is the area contracts that, the employers, the different Med D plans, do they have access to those contracts? And then the other thing, too, is you will look at different types of, how the pharmacy is operating and whether or not it's going to need updated, like the pharmacy system, the point of sale system. And so what are the costs that will be needed to take care of that? And that would help determine maybe just like I was comparing a house that's had a brand new roof put on has more value than a house that has a 30-year roof that's going to have a new roof put on. Same thing as a pharmacy that has a pharmacy system that is from the 1990s that you're going to need to put a new pharmacy system in. So a lot of these things come part of the negotiation when we're determining price. So, how do you obtain the value of the pharmacy? The first important step, and that is why we are going to do this exercise, plus we're going to apply the Healthcare Anytown USA exercise, is that you want to review multiple financial statements, at least 3 years if available, to determine the trends in sales and margins. You want to be able to see if they break them down from the prescription department to the out front part. Maybe they do DME, maybe they do MTM, maybe they do immunizations, maybe they do diabetes education. What does that revenue look like? You're going to look at purchase records. Are they purchasing? Maybe they have poor profitability, but maybe their purchasing is poor. Maybe you found another wholesaler where you can get better pricing. And so you want to look at all those different things in terms of inconsistencies. Once again, your skills you're learning now and you're going to learn next semester for those who stay on in the course are going to help you to be able to do that. But you're also going to seek out experts such as expert accountants that work in this business. You may consult other pharmacy owners to help you, and we'll talk about those different resources again here shortly. You want to look at the expenses because some of those expenses may not be your expenses when you apply, as I gave those examples as cars, family employees, in that nature. And so those are important things in determining the value of a pharmacy. So, what do you, the buyer, need? The critical factor to make this deal work? Well, you need really 3 big things. You want the ability to draw not just a salary, but a managerial salary to make sure that you are being paid for the efforts of taking this risk. Because if you can't do that in the business you're acquiring, then what is it any different than going to work for a pharmacy? Now, when you're starting a business from scratch where you aren't acquiring an already current business, that's a different story. You may pay yourself less in those early years so you can grow the business. And you may think it's worth to do it this one, but you want to make sure when you're doing your business plan and forecasting 3 to 5 years out that the ability to draw a managerial salary does exist. You also want the ability to return on any cash investment to make equivalent significantly better than the current market returns. So you want to be able to see that if I own this business for the next 3 to 5 years, am I going to make the same amount of money if I took that same amount of cash and actually just put it in some type of stock? Obviously, there's other reasons why you want to purchase a business versus put money into the stock market. You want to be your own owner. You want to be able to take care of patients the way you want to do it. Remember, all those factors of being an owner and entrepreneur do come in play. So that number 2, you will wrestle with. The ability to service any debt incurred in the course of the transaction. So obviously, you want the pharmacy itself to be able to pay for the debt. And so if it can't pay for the debt, the bank's probably not going to finance you, and you're going to be in trouble from the get-go. So, why are all these critical? The seller needs to demonstrate to the buyer why his or her business is worth what he or says it is, and how can it be paid off. And this is particularly critical when the seller is providing financing of any kind. So, another thing I'm going to stop here to tell you about, and we'll talk a little bit more about this on Friday. Another opportunity is what's called junior partnership. And junior partnership, and I've had 2 former students do this and be successful at it, is you may find a pharmacy that is looking to, the owner is looking to get out in a couple years. But obviously, the biggest thing is they don't want to just see this business go away. They worked very hard for it, and they would like to pass it on to somebody. And so what you would do is you would come to an agreement with the seller of what the worth of the pharmacy is, just like we're talking about now, but you would not acquire it at first. You would come to work for the seller. And that seller goal, the goal of you and the seller, that is in 5 years, you would actually own 50% of the business. And if you own 50% of the business, the seller may agree to be the financier, that you would not go to a bank. You would actually just pay the seller X amount over, 5 to 10 years. Or you now, by owning 50% of the company, have enough equity that definitely a bank might be willing to give you a loan. And so what happens in those early 5 years, you come work, but you may come work for less salary than you were working for a traditional chain. But that less salary is going to, that the money that you should have been getting, that extra money is going to be set aside in a bonus. And what's going to happen after that first year is that if you meet your bonus, and you're going to come up with a fair measurements of how to do that, you're going to take that bonus and you're going to purchase a percentage of the company. The second year is going to come, you're going to have the same type of bonus, plus you're going to have, if the pharmacy is profitable, you're going to get some of that net profit, and you're going to take both and purchase more of the business. And the goal is that you come up with a structure that you will own 50% of that value you determined in 5, no more than 6 years. And then you have the ability after that to acquire the business. This is a great opportunity for young pharmacists who want to become owners, because there's less of financials you have to shell out. And the thing, in these 5 years, you still have that owner to mentor you, and then you have the ability for the customers and patients to get to know you and to grow the business. The key thing in doing this, though, too, is you want the seller to be able to believe in your dreams and the things that you think will help make this business worthwhile. The buyer, you need to feel comfortable when you, or he or she, you assume ownership, that you'll be able to earn a living, pay off the debt, and to build equity in the business so you can do other things with the business in the future. If the economics work out, what else is important when evaluating a pharmacy? Some other things to think about is the lease. The longer the better, as long as the rent is fair and affordable. Leases with option periods rather than one fixed term add flexibility for the buyer and the value to the business, because maybe you're going to lease for a couple of years, but maybe there's an opportunity down the road to own your own building, or maybe there's a new shopping center right down the road that you think would be a better opportunity. To have the ability to get out of the lease is very important, because the other thing is, if this business flops and you end up selling the inventory and the files, you're still responsible for the paying that lease. And you, most of the time in lease contracts, you can't sublease. So having a lot of flexibility would be great. But having the ability, though, too, that you can't be kicked out. And so you would not want to be able to have a lease where then maybe in a year or two, whoever is the person that owns the lease, whether it's the current seller who owns the building or somebody else, that they don't say, okay, you have to leave, and then all of a sudden you're stuck and you've got to go find another location. And that's happened to numerous businesses, not just pharmacy businesses, in the past. Another thing you need to think about is the current condition of the pharmacy, the furniture, the fixtures, which is the shelving, equipment, the technology, which is the pharmacy system, the point of sale, the internet. Will these things need to be upgraded? And so that the value of what you need to put into that, you may negotiate a lower price for the business. As I said before, you need to look at the competition in the area. Are you going to be accessible to the current contracts? And then also the demographics of the neighborhood. Is this a growing area? Is this a more, oppressed area? Is it getting worse, or is there potential for getting better? So you've identified that pharmacy you would like to purchase. And if you are either doing a junior partnership or you're looking to purchase it straight out, what happens next? The next is the negotiation process begins. So obviously the negotiating process often will be a first-time experience. It may only be a one-time experience. It can be a very difficult experience, because I'll be honest with you, it's not going to happen fast. There are going to be times where you're going to think maybe this isn't going to go through. You have to take your personal feelings and emotions out of it. If you have to have a poker face, which means that you can't show your hand. You need to be very, poised and confident, and also very calm. It requires skills and knowledge you may not currently have. That is why you're taking this course. That is why if you really want this, you're going on to the next course next semester, that you can then have those skills for someday doing that. Because the negotiation process can lead to a less than a positive outcome sometimes, and you have to be willing to walk away when it's not successful. Who should and can assist you with this process? Family members who might be lending you money. Family members who may have owned their own business. Maybe other friends to just play devil's advocate with you. But key people that you need is a good attorney, a good accountant, and then you are going to build a relationship with a bank that wants to and maybe believe in you. You also can focus, how can you find these resources? I'll talk about that in a second. But you also need to talk to your family members. If you're married, your partner, your family, of whether or not they're willing to join you in this journey and commitment. The basics of effective negotiating is be open and communicative at all times. Do your homework and back up all your statements. That's why a good business plan is necessary. Keep your emotions out of the dialogue. Keep a win-win concept in mind at all times. If things aren't going the way you had hoped, walk away gracefully. And this process will take longer than you think, perhaps usually around 9 to 12 months. Always advise and counsel. Knowledge is power. Finding a good accountant and attorney are important. Where can you find them? Ask different people in the area. Refer to your, both your national and state pharmacy organizations. And the two in this area would be National Community Pharmacy Association and also the Pennsylvania Pharmacy Association. There are some other companies out there, Buy Sell Pharmacy, PRS Solutions, that do help young pharmacy owners purchase pharmacies. Your local small business administration can also help you too, especially if in acquiring a bank willing to work with a small business owner. As I said, your wholesaler and relying on maybe different mentors in your school of pharmacy to help you along this way. So, if we go to traditional banking, what to expect? The first thing you need to know about banks is banks are built with the concept of why shouldn't we and what can go wrong mindset. Banks are conservative. Banks are not going to take a risk. And that is why a lot of times when we have non-traditional pharmacy ideas, funding may have to come from yourself, family members, or investors. If you ever watched the show Shark Tank, those people with those new novel ideas aren't going to traditional banks because a lot of times banks aren't willing to take those types of risks. That is why they're going to investors, as you see on Shark Tank. But if you've watched Shark Tank, you know that you have to do your homework. You have to have a sound business plan. So the same things you do with a bank, you also have to do with an investor. And that investor sometimes could be the seller. The process of getting funding is you'll have initial point of contact. You're going to do a due diligence business plan, and this business plan is going to lay out the reasons why your business is going to be successful. And that is what those who are going on in the entrepreneur program will be doing. You're going to be coming up with a preliminary term sheet, which is going to say how much funding you want, over how much time, and what type of interest rate are you seeking. There, the bank would, or the accountants, or there is an underwriting process where the whole loan will be written out, and then there'll be a final term sheet. Obviously, to make sure that this is good funding, the bank, the seller, the lender is going to want an official appraisal. That is why we talked about evaluating a pharmacy first, and then there will be closing documents to be prepared. So, what to expect again? Think about your worst, mid, best case scenarios when doing your business plan. They're going to want your personal taxes, and they're going to want the business taxes from the business you're wanting to acquire. Key thing if you want to own your own business, as you graduate, build a good credit score, pay your bills on time. Think about purchasing some type of property, a house, an investment. This allows you to build good equity. When you're doing your business plan, they're going to want to see the 3 years of historical of the current business and 5 years projected. Keep your assumptions moderate unless you can truly support that this truly can happen this fast of financial growth. They'll want to see what your lease is going to look like to see that they're going to want to keep you. They're going to want a resume of key personnel that are going to be part of your business, and they would want to see what type of business structure you're going to set up, whether it's a corporation, an S corp, an LLC, in that nature. That preliminary term sheet is not the final answer to yes, but it's going to lay out the terms and the interest rate, sorry for the misspelling there, and the amortization schedule, which is going to show you when you're going to pay. As I was still making this analogy, you will go through this process at least once in your life if you acquire a house, a car, in laying these type of preliminary term sheets. You hope to get a locked rate type of loan, and at the same time, as your business grows, there may be times where you'll refinance that loan if you're going to upgrade your business or different things. They'll also want to look at, your salaries, your assets, and your purchase, because they're going to want to make sure that can you make the payments for this debt. They may want collateral, and what collateral is, if something goes wrong, the bank's not going to be out that money. So collateral you can show them the inventory is worth something to sell off. Maybe if you own the building is worth something. The prescription files could be sold to a chain if you closed. And they may look at other assets so that, obviously if you go out of business, the first person you're going to have to pay is the bank. They may ask for some down payment. So, thinking about, traditionally in a house, a down payment is about 20% of what the loan is going to be. So as you're thinking about saving to own your own business someday, that is possibly a potential goal. What is the bank's exposure compared to the value of the assets? That is going to really determine, one, the rate of the loan along with your credit score, and then also they're going to look at, what they could acquire if the business goes belly up. So they're going to look at your financial statements on a yearly basis, maybe even on a quarterly basis, and they're going to want to see that your cash flow generated by your business to be at least 1.25 times the principal and the interest. That is why I talked about financials, and that's why we're going to talk about them one more time next Friday, is understanding your business, not necessarily, doing the financials, but understanding how to evaluate them. The higher the number, the more cushion a business has for downturns. The other thing is, when you show them those initial historic financials, you may also have to show them the calculation add backs. Like I told about, we're not going to have this car on our P&L. We're not going to have these employees on our P&L. We're not going to have these other, business expenses. So sometimes you can show that the business you're acquiring is more profitable than it might show on paper. Banks are in the business of lending money, although, as I was talking, it may appear otherwise, but they are. And the loan package just must appease a number of people to include regulators. Banks do work together, and they will help you be successful, but this can be done. So, that is our lecture for today. One of the things, and I originally was going to make this assignment to have done by next Friday, but we're going to do it together. So, I posted on the website the income and expense statement for this healthcare pharmacy Anytown, USA, and you have the 8th and 9th physical statement. What I asked in the assignment was, and I had it due originally December 7th, we will do it together on December 7th, so let me restate that. And you are going to take that income statement and balance sheet, all right, for the 9th year of the operation, and you're going to use this information to calculate the appropriate ratios for the 9th year and provide a brief analysis on the 3 areas of financial analysis: solvency, efficiency, and profitability. And we'll discuss these during our live class session. So we'll allow you to do them in class. But please, too, besides this lecture, you may want to review the taped lecture, and I will repost it under this section, so that if you want to rewatch it, that'll be fine. I look forward to seeing all of you. Another important point is those who are continuing on to the entrepreneur. I decided not to do the doodle, and I decided to meet with all of you in person and talk about the opportunities and what we're going to be doing next semester. All right, have a good week, and I will see you on Friday. Take care.